Thanks.
That's fine. We'll just make a wee start then. So RP, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a little bit of back and forth trying to arrange a date and time, but we finally got there. We're in front of each other talking, so it's good to finally speak to you, because I think it was maybe before Christmas that I contacted you originally, and through my own fault I had to rearrange things. So I'm glad that you've made a little bit of time out of your day to come on. Whereabouts in America are you?
I'm in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm actually in a section of the state called Bucks County, which is kind of close to the city of Philadelphia. It's one of the suburban sort of counties in Philadelphia area.
So what, is it late morning there?
Here it is 11 a.m., yes, late morning.
Right, so it's 4 p.m. in the afternoon in Scotland. And it's funny what you'd said to me. You've actually been to Scotland before.
I have. I've been a couple times, actually, yes. What part of Scotland are you from or broadcasting from? Yeah,
so I'm situated about 5 minutes outside of Falkirk.
Okay.
So it's really, it's central Scotland. It's right in the middle. It's between Glasgow and Edinburgh, if you're thinking of the big cities. And the other smaller city, which is closer to myself, it's only 20 minutes away, is Stirling.
Yes, so the first time that I was in Scotland, it was on a family trip, because my family was originally from Port Glasgow before they came to the United States around 1918. And so my father kind of took my sister and I in the late 90s through the Highlands, but really we began our trip in Glasgow and kind of Stirling and Falkirk and went up that way. So, yeah.
So you've seen it all.
I feel like I have, and I spent time in St. Andrews and some other areas as well. So yeah, it's such a beautiful country. I love it.
It's funny you talking like that, because I've spoke obviously with other people from America, other people from Australia. Scotland is so unbelievably small compared to these countries, because you're saying you came and visited, and within probably a week or a few days you can pretty much go to most of Scotland.
Yes.
It doesn't take long to travel when you compare it to somewhere like America or Australia, where you can travel for days and you're still in the same state.
Yes, yeah. Well, we spent 10 days there, and the interesting thing is that just, it's still a country that has sort of a diverse sort of landscape, if you will. You've got the mountains, you've got the lowlands, and you've got, cities and towns, and, it's just, I find it, I hate to say the word charming, but I mean, coming from the States, it's a great place to visit, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's cool. But, what I do with all my guests, RP, I go back to the very beginning for them. So for yourself, where were you originally from?
Originally, I've lived in the Philadelphia suburban region for most of my life, except for a while I was signed with Columbia Records. And during that period of time that I was signed with Columbia Records, I had a publishing deal with EMI Music Publishing. I actually lived in Los Angeles, California for a couple of years. And but for most, I have a son, I have a daughter here too. So while I was away, I was kind of coming back and forth, and I just decided I was going to reestablish my roots back here on the East Coast of the United States. LA is a great place to visit, but it's a crazy place to live in for sure.
Yeah. Maybe not at the moment.
Oh gosh, it's another beautiful place, but I mean, mudslides, fires, earthquakes. I mean, you get it all out there. It's crazy.
I've actually I've went to Los Angeles. I've had the chance to go twice, and albeit a very long time ago now, probably 20 something years. And again, what you're saying about Scotland is almost the same way I think going across the area. It's just so different, and there is so much history there. If you go down, the main streets in Los Angeles, you've got these famous music buildings, the whiskey and all that sort of thing, and there's so much history there. And when you actually, if you go, I don't know if you've had the chance to go into them, but they're not that different from any other sort of bar. But the amount of famous people that have walked through those doors, it blows my mind. It's amazing.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I actually really started, my whole interest in music began with those Whiskey A Go-Go bands like, believe it or not, Motley Crue and Quiet Riot and Rat and all of those kinds of LA bands. And it really got me involved with picking up the guitar and learning how to play. I wanted to be a rock star just like those guys. So yeah, I've been to those places and you know, that's where a lot of my music heritage comes from.
Well, I was going to ask, were you exposed to music from a very young age, maybe like from your parents?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. My mother has a master's degree in music, but, you know, she's more focused on like Brazilian jazz and classical. When I was younger, we had a lot of 45s around and we had FM radio here in the States, which played a lot of great songs from the 70s. So I don't know. I've always been interested in music. It's been my love.
Yeah. So you're obviously getting lots of exposure to music from your parents, playing different styles and that. What age were you when you discovered your own musical taste? Because most people, as much as they might like what their parents are playing, you get to an age normally where you discover something that's for yourself. Would that have been like the rock bands?
Yeah, well, that probably would have been maybe around 8, 9 years old is when I really started to, you know, sort of follow some bands. My daughter is 11, and it seems like, you know, it's right around that time, maybe 9, 10, that she was starting to do the same. So I think that's about where I would call it. Yeah.
And I've been obviously looking at your Instagram. I was on your YouTube earlier as well. So I know you're playing the guitar and singing. Was guitar your first instrument?
It was, yeah. Guitar is my first instrument, yeah.
What age were you when you got your first guitar?
Well, I was about 12 years old when I bought my first guitar because, maybe my cousin gave me one at 11 to kind of play around with. But around here, what we used to do to make money is, you know, the kids would go out and with a lawnmower and go cut other people's lawns. And so I saved up all my lawn cutting money and I bought myself my first Fender Stratocaster, and it came at that time with a Fender acoustic guitar. And to this day, every song that I've written on that Fender acoustic guitar. So yeah, those are my two first instruments.
It's funny you say that. I think it was it last year? Maybe it was 2 years ago. My parents live maybe a 20-minute car journey from where I am, and obviously I moved out of the house a long time ago, but I must have completely forgot about it. They were clearing out their attic in the house, and they found a guitar hard case, and it had my first guitar still in it.
Oh.
And it's one of those. It sounds weird thinking you misplaced a guitar. I don't have that many guitars, but I just know it was one of those things. I kind of forgot what happened to it, and because it was stored in a hard case, other than it needing a little bit of a clean, the electrics needed sorted on it, needed restrung. I'm back using it again, recording, and it sounds just as good as the day I got it.
Oh, cool.
Years ago.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's, you know, you make an attachment with an instrument, and then, you know, it's sort of, as they say, like riding a bike, you get right back with it, and it just feels like home.
It's very, very comfortable playing it.
Yeah.
So you started out with a guitar. Were you self-taught, or did you get lessons?
I pretty much am self-taught, yeah. I mean, my cousin gave me a bunch of chords that I needed to practice, but I never really took any lessons. And, you know, it's interesting that you know, I always find other really great guitar players to play with, because I do play lead guitar and I play rhythm guitar, but I never made that dedicated effort to be the best guitar player I could possibly be, because I kind of got diverted by really having an interest in writing words and lyrics and and music and melody and that kind of thing. So yeah, no, not formally taught at all. Pretty much just self-taught by ear. I'm primarily a guitarist as well. I always think there's two camps when it comes to guitar playing. There's the technically gifted people, who are, you know, Eddie Van Halen, you know, the ones that can really, really run up and down it. And then there's the ones that, and I probably put myself more in this category, that not technically gifted, but I think I do have an ear that I play what I think suits the song, what makes the song sound better. It might not be
it could just be a string bend. It might be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
I'm not a shredder on the guitar, but what I do play, I think, makes the song sound better, or hopefully that's what happens. And would you say you're probably more in that as well?
I definitely am. I mean, I would say that, the styles that influenced me as a guitar player were guys like Eric Clapton, who could absolutely shred in his day, in his way.
Yeah.
But he just had a sense for putting the right note in the right place. And also Dickie Betts from the Allman Brothers, obviously Duane Allman with the slide. I mean, just the players that really appealed to me, even Jimmy Page, they could play a lot of things, but they just played the right things in the right places. And so many people say less is more, and that's 100% true. So
when did the singing, was the singing something that came a lot later, or did you kind of start doing that?
No, yeah. I always felt like I could carry a tune from a young age when I sang in some church choirs and things like that. So it was really very much a natural for me to kind of sing along with playing.
Right. And so you'd obviously mentioned a few guitarists there that were influences for yourself, but what about when it comes to vocals? Was there anyone that influenced you back then, or even just now?
Yeah, I would say the top two favorite influences of mine, and maybe most earliest, if you will, would be Ronnie James Dio. Believe it or not, right. I collected all of his music with Rainbow, with his own bands. I mean, that guy and his vocal versatility just blew me away. And then also, I love Jim Morrison. I think Jim Morrison had the amazing, richness in his voice. I mean, he could scream, but he could just sing a note so beautifully. And those two guys, I think a blend of them, really kind of are who I, would emulate.
It's fun. The Doors are my favourite band. So, everything The Doors, Jim Morrison related. It's true what you say about, I mean, his singing as well. That he could a very unique scream, but he was a crooner as well. The Frank Sinatra, Elvis type voice as well, and a lot of that was obviously based on the time. Like that would have been his influences growing up as well. But it's one of those ones where it's just a natural talent, and you almost get jealous of these people that He never trained to be a singer. He was probably never interested for a long time in being a singer. It was just something he fell into. And 60 years later, he's still influencing people. It's crazy.
He was a one of a kind. I mean, just a true one of a kind. And what you were just saying about, Sinatra and Dean Martin, I'd never seriously listened to those famous guys before I listened to Morrison, but when I read his biography and I realized where his roots came from, that the Doors music actually got me interested in going back and listening to Sinatra, who ultimately is probably one of the greatest that ever lived, what he could do with his voice. And so you see, how great, the way that artists can introduce you to other music is just so powerful. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. So, see, when it comes to songwriting for yourself, do you have a process? What is your process for writing a song? Or do you do it, if you write 10 songs, do you do it maybe 8 times it's the same way and there'll be maybe occasionally a different way?
I would say maybe that's true. I don't have a formula. I always find that what comes easiest to me are melodies, and where I really struggle to say what I want to say is in the lyric writing. I feel like my greatest strength, and I love to collaborate with people, but my greatest strength is coming up with melodies and progressions and just, different lines, whether they're keyboard lines or guitar lines or vocal lines. But the lyric writing, that's I wish it came easier, and it doesn't always.
Will the lyrics come last for yourself?
Generally, yes, and in fact, I continue to refine them. I mean, I've been in recording studios where I felt like I had the finish, and I go home and I listen and I think, oh, I really wish I said that differently. I need to be more clear. Is the listener going to get this? So I refine a lot. Not so much with the music, but certainly with the lyrics.
Mm-hmm. And I was obviously listening to your music, so there's a full band that's playing. Is that? Do you have a band, or are you playing everything?
Yeah, well, I play a lot of instruments, and in the recordings, I do crossover. I play bass and guitar, but I also have a bass player playing with me. So yes, there is a full band. It's just that sometimes, like in the recording process, as the songs were developing more, I realized that, rather than going back and, having the bass player come back in and do something, I would do exactly what I wanted to have happen. So there's a few songs where I play bass because I replaced a part that wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And, but I love playing with a band, and that interaction between musicians is really important.
So when you're playing live, you obviously have a band.
Yes.
With you. Who do you have the same people playing?
Yes, yeah, I do. I mean, I play. Oh, sorry. Say that again.
So I'm saying you have the same musicians playing with you. How did you come across those musicians?
Well, it's kind of it's just one introduction leads to another, and I basically just started with one or two guys who introduced me to other guys, and there are certain people who played on the record who probably will not play live with us. Very special situation type players like pianists and others. But I mean, I do a lot of shows acoustic as well, solo acoustic. It's easier to just, bring along a guitar and sing the songs. So I'll carry a lot of shows by myself, but I love the big electric shows for sure.
So you're playing the guitar, you're doing the vocals. Which one are you more confident with?
Singing, yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say guitar.
No, my best instrument is probably my voice. I prefer to lean on guys who don't sing and just play the guitar. They're just great at that. And I could do well in a dual guitar kind of lineup, but I just feel like my greatest strength is in my singing.
And then obviously for the recording process, what is your recording process? Do you record live and do like overdubs later, or do you build it from scratch, maybe doing the drums first and layering everything on top? What's your preferred method? Yeah,
we record the band in a studio room, a big studio, and then just kind of refine it with the overdubs from there. I think getting that first, even if you have to replace some of those original tracks, just getting that first sort of cohesive, energy from the band is the best way to capture the music.
I do like that because with music there is no right or wrong, but it is fascinating when I ask the same question to other people. Everyone has got a different way of doing it, and a lot of it maybe depends on the style of music that you play well. A lot of the rock bands, they'll do the drums first, get that sounding perfect, and then they'll layer everything on top. Mm-hmm. A lot of the sort of country type stuff, it's very much, at the very least, let's get the rhythm section recorded to get that feel. And then we can correct any wee bits and pieces over the top, or we can start adding on top of it. There isn't a right or a wrong, but it is interesting how different people like to record.
Yeah. Well, I would say the style that you were describing, the way that the country artists do it, that more collaborative, like in the room together kind of thing. I think for me, that's the most comfortable way to put down the basic tracks. But oftentimes we're going to replace certain things. Everybody's kind of in isolation, so that you have the ability to do that for sure.
And what about artwork? Is artwork still? Do you think it's still important?
Yeah, I think that it is. As a matter of fact, many of the, I guess you would call them, quote, Americana-style bands here in the States, they'll have artists who will come out and literally do posters for every single show. And I think that fans really do appreciate artwork. I am trying to find a great artist to do some album artwork for me and some other things. And, they're not easy to find. I mean, usually they latch onto an artist and then they just go crazy. So I think artwork is important, but I do miss the albums, but what can you do?
It's interesting because, again, depending on who I'm speaking to, especially if it's somebody a lot younger, you get a different answer because, I'm in my 40s, so when I was discovering music when I was a teenager, it was way back in the 90s. So you would be going into music shops and you would see, you would pick up an album, sometimes just based on what the album cover looks like. It was really good. You might even buy the album having never heard it because the artwork looks cool, something like that. And then, you fast forward all these years later, music is so easily accessible now, but you don't hold it in your hand and own it. It's on your phone, it's through your headphones. And sometimes there's younger people would be thinking, well, why is it important? It's almost irrelevant because it's about the music, but it maybe depends what age group you ask the question to, you get a different answer.
I think you probably are right. I mean, just behind me is a Jethro Tull album cover, and I love to collect, concert and music art and stuff like that. And you just, you don't see a lot of it that way anymore. But it's not surprising because, I don't own a record player anymore. I lost a lot of vinyl in a flood, and I just decided to go digital for my own life, but I do miss having vinyl, and that's where the art really was communicated for the most part.
It's funny, at the start of the podcast, I think before we started recording, you'd went away to get your headphones. I was thinking, that's a Jethro Tull poster in the background.
Yeah, example of another great band. Amazing.
What comes to mind if I ask you, what's your favourite album cover?
My favourite album cover? I don't know if I have a favourite. When I was younger, much younger, I thought, talk about buying a band for their album covers. I got... Iron Maiden is a great example of a band that had this iconic style, like everything was always consistent and the same. I think Kiss kind of did the same thing too, but I can't think of anything that really stands out as singularly perfect in my mind.
I was going to say Iron Maiden automatically comes to my mind just because there's so many albums. There's so much artwork, and it's all based around the Eddie character. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that style that they write the name and everything like that.
Yeah. But I've seen one of my favourite albums is L.A. Woman.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm.
And obviously, my dad used to have the vinyl, the record, and he had the original record when it first came out back in like 1970, whenever it was, and. It's nothing that fancy. I think it's like a red album cover and the inside sleeve is yellow and it's got a picture of the band, just the four guys just sort of standing. But the way they've got it made up, in the top right-hand corner, there's a see-through label as if it's an envelope. And you can see the band looking through looking from the inside out.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's funny because vinyl has become a big thing again. Back here, and I don't have a record player myself, but sometimes if I'm in a music shop I'll flick through it because it is really cool to see the album covers. And I came across the L.A. Woman album and they just had the whole thing printed. Now it's not the same as the original, it's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there was a whole industry of artists and artistry that really focused on that album experience, that physical experience. And what you're describing there, the original versus now this reprint, it's a big difference. Yeah.
So you obviously write songs and record them. You play live. If you had to pick just one to do for the rest of your life, writing and recording or playing live, which one would you pick?
I hope anybody wouldn't be disappointed to hear this, but I think writing and recording I really love. When I was signed with Columbia Records, I did a lot of writing with other writers and artists, and I really enjoyed that experience. I love to just come up with new ideas all the time. It's great to play out. I actually have stage fright, so I get a little bit freaked out when I first get on stage, and I feel much more comfortable in the creative process. And I'll tell you what, the thing that would make me happy is just to have a song of mine or two that live forever in a movie or television show or something like that, because I think that immortality is like, the most important thing to me.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. I think as much as I like doing both, I would probably also pick writing and recording, because I think it would drive me mad if I had songs in my head that I couldn't record and put down.
Yeah.
But it's funny you say like sort of anxiety for performing. Do you still have that just now?
Yeah, I always do. Yeah.
How do you tackle that?
Usually a Johnny Walker, Black on the Rocks. That helps. Beer or something. I mean, like, look, I know I should probably find a better way to deal with it, but oftentimes that's the quickest way to just start to relax a little bit. And
I think it's also, I think there's nothing wrong with being a little bit nervous, but it's maybe how you manage it as well.
Yeah.
But I know for me, it's more, especially if I show up at a place I've not played before, I think I tend to worry more about, I know that I'm capable of playing and singing and doing what I'm meant to do. It's more worrying about, am I going to get a good sound from the PA system, or, you know, is it going to be that horrendous thing where you do the first chord and all 6 strings break or something, you know? regardless of how long I've been playing, it still runs through my mind at times.
Sure.
But obviously, you sent me over your single, Zen. I think it was released 22nd of November, quite late on last year.
Yes.
Was that the last single that you released, or have you released anything since then?
No, I haven't really. I'm about to release another one in another couple of weeks or so. I have a new publicist to help to try and push it out there. The song is Amaze Me. The full record is going to have 12, minimum of 12. I'm working on a 13th song, and then I'm going to kind of release it hopefully in February. But I would say, like, one of the hardest things, and you would know this as well, is that, you know, when you release this music, it's sort of like if a tree falls in the forest, right? I mean, if people don't hear it, you know, what can you value? What value does it have? And so the hardest thing as the artist is, you know, pushing that music out there, and that's, you know, why I've surrounded myself and tried to, you know, put a team together that can try and push it out.
Yeah, it's tough because, again, another discussion that we've had on the podcast is social media and everything being online nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, back years ago, before the internet, I would never have been able to speak to yourself. I would never have heard your music. I wouldn't have known that you existed, and vice versa. And so in one way, this online interaction is great for that. But then there's so many great bands and musicians out there. How do you kind of get your stuff heard over everyone else's? Because there's so much out there now.
Yeah. I mean, that might be a rhetorical question, but the truth is that I think it still, unfortunately, comes down to money. I mean, you know, we've got some, you know, some financial support that helps to push the music out there, and it is hard to rise above, you know, all of the other great artists that are out there and be noticed. It's tough.
Yeah. So 2025, we're early on. So you've got another song about to be released.
Exactly.
You've got the album that you're still working on. Mm-hmm. Is the rest of the year just getting the album out and then playing gigs? Is that kind of the main plan with regard to music?
It is. That's really all it's about. I mean, you know, for this album, it's going to be. I'm really anxious to see, once we've got, you know, the full team working to kind of promote the record, to see whether it resonates. I mean, look, I'm a humble person. I know that, you know, people are going to like it or maybe not care for it, and I'm just gonna have to stick my neck out and just go for it. So yeah, once this is finished, we'll kind of transition to playing and see where it goes.
Cool. Right, well, up to this point, RP, we've obviously been lots of technical chat for any musicians that are watching, whether it be songwriting, recording, artwork, and everything else in between. So what I like to do is ask some fun questions before we end things, right? Okay. So imagine you can go back in time, anywhere in the world, big gig, small gig, I'll let you decide. What's the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
Oh, Woodstock has to be Woodstock for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah, that just that 3-day festival. I mean, just the magnitude of just importance from that event was just it's unbelievable. So yeah, that would be it. Yeah.
Okay. As you know, over the years, thousands and thousands of amazing songs have been written and recorded by different artists. What's the one song that you wish you could have been in the recording studio to witness the band record the song?
I would say that it would be Blue Sky by the Allman Brothers, because there's an amazing collaboration between Dickie Betts and Duane Allman, and I would have loved to have seen that band cut that with those two great guitar players. I mean, I probably could have chosen a million songs, but that one just pops into my head.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure if I asked you the same question for the next 7 days, you could give me seven different answers.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. If you were able to collaborate with another musician, like a well-known musician, and write a song, who would it be?
Right now, in this era or any era?
I'll let you decide.
Well, I think George Harrison, actually. I think he had a real amazing musical sense. He surrounded himself by great people, and he had a lot to say, and I would love to see what he would say with some of the stuff that maybe ideas that I had. So yeah, that'd be cool.
And then last question for yourself, Mount Rushmore, who is the 4 bands or musicians for yourself, whether it be songwriting, performance, the overall package, who are the 4 bands or musicians for yourself that are just your favourites?
For me, it's got to be Jimi Hendrix. I guess because of his impact on my life, I would say Jim Morrison. And I would probably put up there an artist that maybe wouldn't immediately come to mind. He's a country artist, George Jones, regarded as maybe one of the most famous singers of all time, and he's just an inspiration. And last but not least, Mount Rushmore. Oh, God. I want to try and choose a woman, and I keep thinking of Janis, but I don't know if I could put Janis Joplin on Mount Rushmore. She was so great for such a short period of time. Oh, man. Who's my 4th? Let's put Janis on there. I don't want to take up too much time. She's just coming to my mind. She was so amazing.
There we go. The late 60s are well represented there.
Yeah. That's where I live. And in the early 70s, it's just where, I learned all that music, and that's where I come from. So,
right, RP, thank you so much for coming on and speaking to myself about all things music. I do wish you all the luck in the future with regard to the new releases. If anybody is interested in hearing your music, as I said, you're on YouTube. You're on social media. They can go on there. They can find out what releases you've got coming up, how to purchase it. If you've got any gigs, if they're in the same area as yourself, they can come and see you play and cheer you on. But I do wish you all the luck. Thank you for coming on, and we'll talk down the line at some point.
Oh, thanks for having me. When we come to Glasgow or Edinburgh, I'm sure I'll see you. I'll look you up in Falkirk.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a million.